this verse. Demolish and then start over. The message of Jeremiah, son of Hilkiah, of the family of priests who lived in Anathoth in the country of Benjamin. This God's message began to come to him during the 13th year that Josiah, son of Ammon, reigned over Judah. It continued to come to him during the time of Jehoiakim, son of Josiah, as he reigned over Judah. And it continued to come to him clear down to the 5th month of the 11th year of the reign of Zedekiah, son of Josiah, over Judah, the year that Jerusalem was taken into exile. This is what God said. Before I shaped you in the womb, I knew all about you. Before you saw the light of day, I had holy plans for you. A prophet to the nations. That's what I had in mind for you. But I said, hold it, Master God. Look at me. I don't know anything. I'm only a boy. God told me, don't say I'm only a boy. I'll tell you where to go and you go there. I'll tell you what to say and you'll say it. Don't be afraid of a soul. I'll be right there looking after you. This is God's decree. God reached out, touched my mouth and said, look, I've just put my words in your mouth. Hand delivered. See what I've done? I've given you a job to do among nations and governments, a red letter day. Your job is to pull up and tear down, take apart and demolish, and then start over building and planning. Stand up and say your piece. God's message came to me. What do you see, Jeremiah? I said, a walking stick, that's all. And God said, good eyes, I'm sticking with you. I'll make every word I give you come true. God's message came again. So what do you see now? I said, a boiling pot tipped down toward the south. And God told me disaster will pour out of the north on everyone living in this land. Watch for this. I'm calling for the kings out of the north. This is God's decree. They'll come and set up headquarters facing Jerusalem's gates, facing all the city walls, facing all the villages of Judah. I pronounce my judgment on the people of Judah for walking out on me. What a terrible thing to do. And courting other gods with their offerings, worshiping as gods, sticks they'd carve, stones they'd painted. But you, up on your feet and get dressed. Stand up and say your piece. Say exactly what I tell you to say. Don't pull your punches or I'll pull you out of the lineup. Stand at attention while I prepare you for your work. I'm making you as impregnable as a castle, immovable as a steel post, solid as a concrete block wall. You're a one-man defense system against this culture, against Judah's kings and princes, against the priests and local leaders. They'll fight you, but they won't even scratch you. I'll back you up every inch of the way. This is God's decree. Jeremiah 2, Israel was God's holy choice. God's message came to me. It went like this. Get out in the streets and call to Jerusalem. This is God's message. I remember your youthful loyalty, our love as newlyweds. You stayed with me through the wilderness years, stuck with me through all the hard places. Israel was God's holy choice, the pick of the crop. Anyone who laid a hand on her would soon wish he hadn't. This is God's decree. Hear God's message, house of Jacob. Yes, you, house of Israel, God's message. What did your ancestors find fault with me? They drifted so far from me, took up with Sir Windbag and turned into windbags themselves. It never occurred to them to say, where's God, the God who got us out of Egypt, who took care of us through thick and thin, those rough and tumble wilderness years of parched deserts and death valleys, a land that no one comes out of, a cruel and hospitable land. I brought you to a garden land where you could eat lush fruit, but you barged in and polluted my land, trashed and defiled my dear land. The priests never thought to ask, where's God? The religion experts knew nothing of me. The rulers defied me. The prophets preached God Baal and chased empty God dreams and silly God schemes. Because of all this, I'm bringing charges again. This is God's decree, charging you and your children and your grandchildren. Look around. Have you ever seen anything quite like this? Sail to the Western Islands and look. Travel to the Gadar wilderness and look closely. Has this ever happened before that a nation has traded in its gods for gods that aren't even close to gods? But my people have traded my glory for empty God dreams and silly God dreams. Stand in shock, heavens, at what you see. Throw up your hands in disbelief. This can't be God's decree. My people have committed a compound sin. They walked out on me, the fountain of fresh flowing waters, and then dug cisterns. Excuse me, cisterns that leak, cisterns that are no better than sleeves. Isn't Israel a valued servant to a family with a place and position? So how did she end up a piece of meat fought over by snarling and roaring lions? There's nothing left of her but a few old bones. Her town's trashed and deserted. Egyptians from the cities of Memphis and Taphanes have broken your skulls. And why do you think all this has happened? Isn't it because you walked out on your God just as he was, beginning to lead you? And now what do you think you'll get by going off to Egypt? Maybe a cool drink of Nile River water. What do you think you'll get by going off to Assyria? Maybe a long drink of Euphrates River water. Your evil ways will get you a sound thrashing. That's what you'll get. You'll pay dearly for your disloyal ways. Take a long, hard look at what you've done and its results. Was it worth it to have walked out on your God's decree, the master of God, angel armies, addicted to alien gods? A long time ago, you broke out of the harness. You shook off all restraints. You said, I will not serve. And off you went, visiting every sex and religion shrine on the way like a common whore. You were a select vine when I planted you from complete reliable stock. And look how you've turned out, a tangle of rancid growth, a poor excuse for a vine. Scrub, using the strongest soap, scour your raw skin. The sin grease won't come out. I can't even look at you. This is God's decree, the master's decree. How dare you tell me I'm not stained by sin? I've never chased after all sex gods. Well, look at the tracks you've left behind in the valley. How do you account for what is written in the desert dust? Tracks of camel and heat running this way and that. Tracks of wild donkey and rut, sniffing in the wind for the slightest scent of sex. Who could possibly corral her? On the hunt for sex, sex, and more sex. Insatiable, indiscriminate, promiscuous. Slow down, take a deep breath. What's the hurry? Why wear yourself out? Just what are you after anyway? But you say, I can't help it. I'm addicted to alien gods. I can't quit. Just as a thief is chagrined, but only when caught. So the people of Israel are chagrined, caught only along with their kings and princes. Their priests and prophets, they walk up to a tree and say, my father. They pick up a stone and say, my mother, you bore me. All I ever see of them is their backsides. They never look me in the face. But when things go bad, they don't hesitate to come running, calling out, get a move on, save us. Why not go to your handcrafted gods you're so fond of? Rouse them. Let them save you from your bad times. You've got more gods, Judah, than you know what to do with. Trying out another project. What do you have against me running off to assert your independence? This is God's decree. I've wasted my time trying to train your children. They paid no attention to me, ignored my discipline. You've gotten rid of your God messengers, treating them like dirt and sweeping them away. What a generation you turned out to be. Didn't I tell you? Didn't I warn you? Have I let you down, Israel? Am I nothing but a dead end? Why do my people say good riddance? From now on, we're on our own. Young women don't forget their jewelry, do they? Brides don't forget or don't show up without their veils, do they? But my people forget me day after day after day. They never give me a thought. What an impressive start you made to get the most out of life. You founded schools of sin. You taught graduate courses in evil. And now you're sending out graduates, resplendent in cap and gown, except the gowns are stained with the blood of your victims. All that blood convicts you. You cut and hurt a lot of people to get where you are, and yet you have the nerve to say, I've done nothing wrong. God doesn't mind. He hasn't punished me, has he? Don't look now, but it's on the way, aimed at you who say I've done nothing wrong. You think it's a small thing, don't you, to try out another sin project when the first one fails? But Egypt will leave you in the lurch, the same way that Assyria did. You're going to walk away from there wringing your hands. I, God, have blacklisted those you've trusted. You'll get not a lick of help from them. Jeremiah chapter 3, sex and religion obsessions. God's message came to me as follows. If a man's wife walks out on him and marries another man, can he take her back as if nothing had happened? Wouldn't that raise a huge stink in the land? Is that what you've done? Hoard your way with God after God. And now you want to come back as if nothing happened. This is God's decree. Look around at the hills. Have you not had sex? You've camped out like hunters stalking deer. You've solicited many lover gods like a street walking whore, chasing after other gods. So the rain has stopped. No more rain from the skies, but it doesn't even faze you. Brazen as whores. You carry on as if you've done nothing wrong. Then you have the nerve to call out, my father, you took care of me when I was a child. What now? Are you going to keep up your anger nonstop? That's your line. Meanwhile, you keep sinning nonstop. Admit your God defiance. God spoke to me during the reign of King Josiah. You have noticed, haven't you, how fickle Israel has visited every hill and grove tree as a whore at large. I assumed that after she had gotten it out of her system, she'd come back, but she didn't. Flighty sister Judah saw what she did. She also saw that because of her fickle sister's loose morals, I threw her out. I gave her her walking papers, but that didn't faze flighty sister Judah. So she went out big as you please and took up a whore's life also. She took up cheap sex and religion as a sideline, divergent, indulgent recreation and used anything and anyone, flouting sanity and sanctity alike, stinking up the country. And not once in all this did flighty sister Judah even give me a nod, although she made a show of it from time to time. God's decree. Now God told me fickle Israel was a good sight, better than flighty Judah. Go and preach this message north to Israel and say, turn back, fickle Israel. I'm not just hanging back to punish you. I'm committed in love to you. My anger doesn't seethe nonstop. Just admit your guilt, admit your God defiance, admit your promiscuous life with casual partners, pulling strangers into the sex religion groves while turning a deaf ear to me. God's decree. Come back, wandering children, God's decree. And yes, I'm your true husband. I'll pick you out one by one, this one from the city and these two from the country, and bring you to Zion. I'll give you a good shepherd rulers who rule my way, who rule you with intelligence and wisdom. And this is what will happen. You will increase and prosper in the land. The time will come, God's decree, when no one will say any longer, oh, for the good old days. Remember the Ark of the Covenant? It won't even occur to anyone to say it, the good old days. The so-called good old days of the Ark are gone for good. Jerusalem will be the new Ark, God's throne. All the godless nations no longer stuck in the ruts of their evil ways will gather there to honor God. At that time, the house of Judah will join with the house of Israel, holding hands. They'll leave the north country and come to the land I will to your ancestors. I planned what I'd say if you return to me. Good, I'll bring you back into the family. I'll give you choice land that the godless nations would die for. And I imagine that you would say, dear father, and would never again go off and leave me. But no luck, like a false-hearted woman walking out on her husband. You, the whole family of Israel, have proven false to me, God's decree. The sound of voices comes drifting out of the hills, the unhappy sound of Israel's crying. Israel lamenting the wasted years, never once giving her God a thought. Come back, wandering children. I can heal your wanderlust. We're here. We've come to you. You're our own true God. All that popular religion was a cheap lie. Dupe crowds buying up the latest in gods. We're back to our true God, the salvation of Israel. The fraud picked us clean, swindled us of what our ancestors bequeathed us, gypped us out of our inheritance. God bless flocks and God-given. We made our bed and now lie in it, all tangled up in the dirty sheets of dishonor, all because we sinned against our God, we and our fathers and mothers. From the time we took our first step, said our first words, we've been rebels, disobeying the voice of our God. This is